Should we get started?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Lynn Bailing, and welcome to Lesson Planning 101. A couple of weeks ago, I think all of you were at Linda's session where she shared a lot of information with you about Beaverton literacy. So tonight, we're going to talk about the one of the biggest things that you'll be doing as lead teachers, which is lesson planning, in addition to teaching a class, assuming that you all decide to be lead teachers. So have any of you done lesson planning in the past in any roles that you've had? Oh, okay. Few of you. Oh, great. Okay. All right. So I'm probably not going to be telling you anything you don't already know. But let's go ahead and get started. I will share what I've got with you here. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight is talk about, and that's not the right slide. Linda and I were looking at these earlier. Let me get the right one. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about three of the pillars of lesson planning, which is determining objectives, scaffolding, and then putting it all together. And feel free to stop me anytime you have comments or questions. Oh, I did want to say that I forgot my introduction already. That yesterday I finished my last class with my group of students. Tomorrow is really the last day, but we're having a potluck in the park, and so I just finished my sixth year, level three. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I just, when you finish a year, you just sort of reflect on how it went. And I have to tell you, it's still one of the most fun and rewarding experiences that I've had volunteering for BLC. So I hope you all get that experience too. Okay, back to the good stuff. Okay, so what exactly is lesson planning? Well, it's basically you deciding the following, and I would love for one of you to read this slide for me. Do I have any volunteers? Or
I can do, I'll
thanks,
do it.
Mitzi. Okay.
Do you want me to read it all?
Yes, please.
Okay. What exactly is lesson planning? You decide objectives. What do students need and want to know, practice, learn, and what does success look like? Content. What materials to use? Textbook, supplement? What order to do it in, and or how much time to allocate for each segment and exercise? And what if it goes off the rails? Plan B.
Okay. I'm sure some of you have seen that happen if you're assisting now or you've done teaching in the past. Sometimes it does go off the rails. So we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Thanks, Mitzi. Okay, so just a couple of thoughts. There's no one right way to do lesson planning, so I suggest you try different approaches. You can write it all down use a spreadsheet. You can use slides like I do. You can use documents like Linda does. Um, you can do it in your head, although I don't recommend that totally, but just try different things when you're getting started to see what works best for you. I think it's more of an art than a science. It just, it's creative. It uses your skills more than rules, okay? I suggest that you try to make it interesting, varied, and fun with games and puzzles. It turns out that adults like doing games and puzzles as well. And it sure beats droning on about, you know, present perfect tense for 75 minutes. So one of the things I try to do is put as much variety in a class as I can, because otherwise you're going to lose the students. They're going to get bored. Okay. Build in enough time and activity for review. Um, you probably know this already. You just need to really review with students, especially at the lower levels. And then you can use primarily the textbook or primarily supplemental resources or anything in between. Okay. Any
Lynn,
comments?
Yeah, is it okay if I add something about
Sure,
the variety?
of course.
There's a concept that comes in a. Do you mind stop sharing for a sec?
Yeah.
It comes in in one of those four square boxes, and that is if you're doing new material, you're covering something that's material that's new to the students, you want to do it with a known activity. So you don't want students to have to learn how to do something, the new activity, along with new material. If you're introducing a new game or a new kind of activity, a new way of doing something, do it with material that they really know. So, for example, if you're doing dictation for the first time, use really easy sentences, easy words. So they understand what dictation is like and what your expectations are and how that works. And then once they know how you like to do dictation, you can start using dictation for some newer material. Um, and the reverse is true. If you are introducing new material, don't do it with a new game also at the same time. It's too much. You want to be able to direct their focus.
When we're, I have a question. I just want to make sure that when we're talking about lesson planning and the objectives that I create, but that's within a framework of an established curriculum that is designated for level 0, level 1, or whatever, right? So that I'm looking at a textbook and a curriculum, and then I'm doing lesson plans with regard to those established expectations. Yes?
Yes, so level 0 through 4 have textbooks, but we also have a lot of supplemental resources. Linda touched on that last time, and I'm going to talk about it briefly tonight as well to give you variety in what you do, because sometimes a textbook is not quite enough, but it's definitely a great structure and a guideline for what you should be teaching, and then you can add to it.
I get it. Okay.
Did that answer your question, Kent?
Yeah, I did. I just want to make sure I was on track.
Yep. Okay. We're going to take a look at the what the textbook looks like in a few minutes as well. Any other comments, questions? Yeah,
Um,
Jean.
I just wanted to mention, so I've taught before, so like here's the book that we teach out of. That's this is the basic level. So right, there's a book that we have and we can follow it. So it is very concrete that way too.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Jean.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So the first step is developing strong objectives. And would somebody please read this slide for me too, so you don't get tired of hearing my voice?
I'll read it.
Thanks, Kent.
Developing strong objectives. A lesson plan objective should give you a clear and concise idea of what you want to achieve with a lesson or even a specific exercise. It should be learner focused, not teacher focused. Do you want me to do the example?
Please.
For example, learners can recall and name 8 types of fruit without written or oral prompts, with 75% of the class answering correctly.
Okay. So you may not go into that much detail when you're writing objectives. You can write an objective for your entire class or for a specific exercise. This is for a specific exercise. Really, the reason you want to do this is because you need to know, are we ready to move on? Have they gotten what they need, or do we need to go back and review? So if you have a measurable objective, that really helps you know where you're at with the class. Okay. So here's some recommended verbs for writing objectives. Um, Define, state, duplicate, reproduce, select, underline, recall, recognize, list, name, repeat. And the reason that these are considered strong verbs for writing objectives is because they do help you measure the outcome of uh, of what exercise you're doing. So I'm going to share these with you a little bit later when we have a little interactive exercise. So Okay, so here's some words you should avoid. Why do you think these should be avoided when you're writing objectives? Any thoughts?
Well, they're rather ambiguous and
Mhm.
they don't lend themselves to measurement.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So here's a couple of weak examples. Um, introduce new fruit vocabulary. You may be thinking that in your head, like, yes, today I want to introduce new fruit vocabulary. But as we already looked at, you probably need to be a little bit more specific about what you want to achieve or what you want the students to achieve. Another one is by the end of class, we'll complete Unit 8. Okay. Again, that might be in your head as a goal, what you would like to do, but it would be helpful to be more specific. So here's a couple of other examples. Elena, would you be willing to read this for us? Okay.
Writing objectives, strong examples. By the end of the lesson, 75% of learners can recall and name the past tense of 10 irregular verbs from a list with 90% accuracy. And another one is 90% of learners can list 10 types of fruit after seeing flashcards with pictures with 75% accuracy. So, is this class ready to move on?
Mhm. Okay, so I underlined these verbs because they were on the list of the strong verbs to use when you're writing objectives. So again, you may not get into this much detail, or you may just have it in your head, like I do sometimes, but I do most of the time have an idea of, all right, if we're going to do this exercise, I really need, 8 out of my 10 students to get it right 8 out of 10 times, or else we're not going to move on. We need to go back and review.
I'll
Okay.
just can I just echo what you said?
Yes,
So
please.
What Lynn said is more for me, certainly more realistic than percentage. I don't know what 75% of my students, right? I think, yeah, and you get to know your students, well, the weakest students haven't gotten there. How important is this? And can I get them extra help? And are we going to revisit it later? But I might say, yeah, 8 of them got it. I think we need to move on and see if we can circle back for those other 2. I don't think I've ever written an objective that had percentages in it,
Mhm.
personally.
That's textbook objective writing. So, but Linda's right. In
Yeah.
reality, you're probably not going to do that, but you should have some sort of measurement in your head to say what's success, just like Linda said. So, okay. Any other comments about?
This is Elena. I was just going to say that when you're building a learning curve, you're building on what you learned previously to
Mhm.
make a fuller, develop prior knowledge so you can have a better knowledge. And so it's really comfortable, really, it flows more naturally to include some of the things that you taught in previous lessons
Mhm.
to because not everyone learns in the same sequence. Not everyone comes to class with the same prior knowledge.
Mhm.
And so by reviewing this in kind of a spiral as you move up, you give people the chance to make sense out of it.
Exactly. Good point.
I mean, and if your same learners are not getting it every lesson, then maybe there's a different conversation to be had. Maybe maybe they're in the wrong level. Maybe they need to switch classes. Maybe, right? Because if we keep moving ahead and the same students are just not getting it, as Elena said, they're not going to be able to build the next skills on the prior skills because they don't have the prior skills yet. So, yeah, we need to be able to talk about that to figure out what we can do for those learners.
Mhm.
I think it's a little helpful for the students also to have goals because often they're in such a hurry and they're so harsh. Anything less than 100%, they think, they failed. So to, get a better framing of, getting 75% right most of the time, this is a successful outcome just to help them frame perhaps too.
Mhm. Yes, they should have goals too. You're right.
When I was teaching, though, I was aware of the objectives and different ways of measuring it, but I always found that reading the students' faces was a way for me to monitor whether I needed to slow down or needed to go over
Mhm.
something again. That
Mhm.
usually gave me the best clue that either I wasn't doing it or they weren't getting it, and so I needed to retrench.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And just to put a point on Jean's comment, Jean's used to teaching higher level students. With lower level students, we're not going to be able to get them to formulate specific objectives. They might do that in their language, but
Mhm.
Carola.
I think also participation, when students are understanding and they are being able to follow the lesson or the new material that you're introducing, they might be more willing to participate and take a little bit of a risk because they understood that they feel a little more comfortable. But if they are completely shy, that's what Ken said. That's also a good sign. If you see their faces a little bit like what's going on, but participation, I think, is a good sign to know how are we doing,
Yes,
how we're doing.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you keep an eye on those students that don't participate very much, then you can also reframe your objectives around that as well, as
Yeah.
Linda said. So all good points. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's do a quick practice. So I would like for you to write an objective for a lesson introducing days of the week using one of the recommended verbs. And I will go back to that screen
Please.
with recommended verbs because I didn't expect you to memorize them. So, okay, make this bigger. So I'll just give you a minute. So just assume that this is like a level 1 class and you're teaching the days of the week. And what would success look like for you? So think of maybe an exercise that you could do and what the outcome would look like. Okay. Everybody ready, or do you need another minute?
I'm
Okay.
ready.
Okay. Who would like to share what they wrote?
I wrote that to list one activity that you have to do in every single day of the week.
Okay,
Just one activity, one thing they have to do.
that's a good one. Thank you. Who else? Mitzi, what did you write?
Well, I didn't actually write anything, but yeah, I was looking at the list and it really is dependent on where you feel like your students are at. Is it recognized is easier than or recall, that are both a little well, if recall if there's prompts or not prompts, and then list and name, like can they recognize as kind of a lower level, and then if they can without prompts recall or name the days of the week or the activity and so on. So yeah, but I really liked I was still kind of thinking it through, but Corolla, is that how you say your name, Corolla?
Yes, Carola.
Yeah, when I was a little girl, there was a Corolla in my neighborhood, a little old lady Corolla. Anyway,
There's another little old lady here.
yeah, a little old lady. Like when I was like a kid, I don't know how old she was, but when you're like 10, anyone over 40 seems like a little old lady. Anyway, Corolla, yeah, to think about, oh, what do you do on these days? I was thinking, oh yeah, that's a really, really good way to not just be like, what's the difference between, days of the week or whatever. So I appreciated that a lot. And then tailoring it to, yeah, can you do it unprompted or do you need a little help and just recognizing? Yeah.
Okay. So you make a valid point. The words depend on, which words you choose. If you use any of those is depending on what exercise you're doing. And, they're all similar. They're all measurable or give you some idea of, what success looks like. So, okay, does anybody else want to read what they wrote?
I was trying to think of levels of learning. And so I wrote two of them. One of them was I happen to know as the song Days of the Week. That goes the tune of the Munsters. So I said most of the students can recite Days of the Week using the Days of the Week song. So that's more
Say it for us.
I was just going to say, Elena, you have to share.
I know. I don't think.
Vic, come on.
And then for the more advanced students, I said, most of the students can recall names of the week using a calendar.
Okay, great.
So,
Yeah, I like your first one, but you're not going to sing it for us?
yeah, I'll sing it to you.
Okay.
It's really crazy, but it's zany, but it's fun. It goes, days of the week, days of the week. There's Monday and there's Tuesday, there's Wednesday and there's Thursday, there's Friday and there's Saturday, and then it starts again, days of the week.
Oh, I love it.
Thank you.
That's cool.
Well, students do like music, right? And they learn from it. So I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
I used a lot of music in teaching because I taught kindergarten in a classroom where most of the students were second language learners. In fact, one time I only had one native English speaker, and then she moved, and I went, oh, but I taught all of my subject matter content with songs. And then I also use nursery or, rhymes to teach rhyming words and stuff like that. I was surprised how many of my students did not understand rhyming.
Oh,
yeah.
So I would use nursery rhymes to teach rhyming.
That's a good thing to do. Yeah. Variety as well with music. Okay. Anybody else before we move on? Just wanted to give you a little practice thinking about, writing something that helps you decide whether you're ready to move on. Are we ready to move on? I think so. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's talk about scaffolding. So here you see some construction scaffolding. So it's, built from the ground up. What do you think scaffolding is in English learning? Anybody? Any thoughts? Scaffolding.
Patterns, the rules,
Say that again, please.
the patterns.
Okay, the patterns. Okay, and what can you say more about that?
I mean, so how, right, both the melody of how we speak. So, like, for one thing, I like to really talk a little bit about how periods are kind of important for like understanding and breathing. And to me, that's a very important scaffolding because the period is that thought, and very often that gets ignored. So, like, that's one of the patterns that we need to see.
Okay, patterns. All right.
I think when we were talking about it earlier about building on what you're learning. So you're teaching about, I'm trying to think of days of the week, okay? And then the scaffolding would, in my mind, I want to go back to what Carolina was saying, where you build, like if you're doing scaffolding, you teach the days of the week, and then you build on that concept by saying, okay, here's what we do, how we use days of the week. You can relate it to how they use days of the week in their language. And you can also relate it to, okay, days of the week helps us to know what we're supposed to be doing on any given day or what we want to do on any given day. And so to me, that's building on what they already know and adding another concept.
Mhm.
But I
Exactly.
like that punctuation, Jean, also, because you could take the period and then you could build on that and talk about the question mark and the exclamation mark, so that would be a good example of scaffolding also.
Mhm. Okay. So I'm going to share with you what the experts say about scaffolding. What is it? Well, it's just as you described, Elena, actually breaking tasks into smaller, manageable steps or chunks to reduce learner overwhelm. Okay. So I know sometimes we can tend to try to overwhelm students or just give them too much information all at once. So it's breaking these tasks into chunks, okay? And then it's also where teachers decrease their support as students progress through lessons, okay? So let me give you some examples of what that looks like. Okay, so let's say that we're teaching the prepositions in, on, or at. And so here I have, I think, 5 exercises that are in scaffolding order. Okay, so the first one is a multiple choice where we actually give them the 3 words as a choice in the sentence. Okay, so it's recognition of the preposition. Okay, the next one, not too much harder, but a little bit. They have to look at the words here and fill in the blank. Okay, so this is controlled practice. Then the next time, and maybe this is the next lesson or the next class. You don't have to do these all in one class. Okay, so then they need to negotiate meaning, which is matching the sentences with the correct meaning. So this time they have to understand the context of the sentence and match it to what it means. Okay, then the next exercise would be guided production. So they need to complete sentences with their own ideas using in, on, or at. Okay, so with each of these, there's less teacher involvement and more student effort into the exercise. So then the last one is free practice writing, where they have to write sentences using the 3 prepositions. Okay, so that's a very simple example of what scaffolding is, but basically it's just starting with the easiest, most supported exercise and moving to the one that involves the students' recall and learning to the most extent. Questions about this or comments? Okay. I know sometimes the textbook, I feel, does an adequate job of scaffolding, but I feel like I want more sometimes, like it's not quite enough for a complex grammar point that I'm trying to teach. So then I might, bring in some supplemental information. But I always have to stop and think, is this in the right order or am I rushing them into something that they're not prepared for yet? So that's all really scaffolding is when you're doing your lesson plan, just be thinking about, starting with the most supported and going to the least supported. Okay, Linda?
Can I echo what you said again there? And I think this comes back to Kent's question from earlier, which was, I'm planning my lesson within the scope of the textbook and the order of things that the textbook provides, which is absolutely true. And yet, some of our job as lesson planners is to say, okay, the textbook starts a unit with this, or whatever it's teaching is about this. Do my students have the prior knowledge to learn that at this point? Or is it too much at one point? I find that, and I've looked at lots of ESL textbooks, there's no panacea in this world, I think. But there are times I'll teach 2 or 3 lessons before we get to the first part of a unit that that's in the book. So that's where the scaffolding is really important, to think about what prior knowledge do students need in order to learn to really retain and understand whatever the next thing is that we're doing. And I might need to scaffold even before that to get into that, what the book does. I know where I'm going because I know what the book has, and I don't have to invent, what should we learn next? So the books provide critical structure. That's our curriculum is based on them for the first 0 through 4 levels. It's just our job as teachers to know our students and figure out, when the book exercises will be appropriate. Often they are, and sometimes we think they are, and we go in and realize, oh, they don't really know this, and we have to back out. This is what Lynn was talking about before with contingency planning. We have to back out and start teaching either then or the next level with something that comes before that.
Thanks, Linda, for that. Any other thoughts on scaffolding? Okay. It was a concept I wasn't familiar with when I started teaching. And it's really helped me a lot in my lesson planning to think about what's next? Is it enough? Should I go back? Is it supported? And are they getting enough practice, basically? Okay. So that's the part of the lesson planning that the content part where you have to decide, and also how much time to spend on something as well. Okay. All right. Okay. So putting it all together in a lesson plan. So we're going to talk about using the Ventures textbook, using supplemental resources, and then creating class materials, whether it be slides or docs. Okay. So Linda's going to talk about the Ventures textbook for a couple of minutes. And if you haven't seen it, although I think a couple of you have seen it, but she's going to share with you what it looks like and how to use it.
All right. So the textbook, there are 0, it's called basic through 4, and they're all basically organized in a similar way. Each unit has the same title throughout, to Elena's point, throughout the levels. So unit 4 is about health, and unit 4 in the basic book is about health, and we're learning about body parts and simple things. Unit 4 in the level 1 book is also about health. It's spiraling that knowledge. We're reviewing the body parts, but also starting to learn to talk to doctors and maybe make an appointment. This book is, which one did I choose? I think this is level 3, the green one. The blue one, is it, Lynn?
The green is level 3. This looks like
the blue.
The blue is level 2.
Level 2. Okay, right. So every unit starts out with a picture, and I use these pictures to ask my students, what do you see? Just start just with that, because we don't want to spend time on things. This is a great formative assessment at the beginning of the unit. We don't want to spend time teaching things that our students know. We want to be able to build on that. So just saying, what do you see? We'll see, how they respond. And then they get into, there's a listening activity, there are pictures throughout, and there are exercises. We can blow them up and look at them specifically. We can use, now, where is annotation on this menu? I'm not using our own Zoom account, so I don't know where everything is. But we can use Zoom's annotation to fill things in, or we can take screenshots, put them in class materials. If some people like to do it that way, we can. I didn't share my sound. Here. We can watch little videos that they have. Allow, yes.
How did you pull up that video?
I just clicked on the QR code.
Okay.
And the cool thing about these is that this is exactly what the student's book looks like. We mail books to students' homes, whether they are in-person classes or online classes. When they register, they accept their class, we mail the books to their home. And this is exactly what their book looks like. So if we're screen sharing, they can be following along in their book or looking at the screen either way. And they can take their phone, because they have a hard copy of the book at home, they can take their phone and rewatch the video, or I think this one had listening activity here.
Unit 4, Health.
They can listen and do activities. The same thing with the workbook. We send students this is the student book and the workbook, and I can't find it in here, but the students in the workbook also have the QR code, so they can get audio, they can get video to support whatever the exercise is in the workbook. The workbooks also have answers in the back. They are meant to be supplemental materials for students to practice at home, whatever we did in class. The answers in the back are not, I don't think they're crazy useful, because the student has to be pretty dedicated. They're just columns of, unit 3, exercise 2, 1A, 2B, 3C. I usually provide answers to my students in other ways, or I have them take pictures of what they're doing and send me their pictures, and I can review their homework that way. But it does provide extra material for us to give them. They can practice at home, and it's just another thing that as a teacher, you don't have to prepare everything. Any other questions about the book? Okay.
Right. So that's the first thing that you're going to look at, is the book. And, is it adequate for what you want to teach? And how do I need to supplement it if I do? Especially in the beginning, you can stick pretty closely to the textbook if you're a new teacher. I think, it will guide you, especially with the topics that you're teaching. Okay. But if you want to add supplemental resources, Beaverton Literacy has just a wealth of things that you can use. I know Linda shared some of this with you in the last time, but we have online subscriptions for current teachers that BLC pays for, that are all very good. I mean, they've all been vetted. We use them all. We particularly use WordWall, is one that has a lot of games and puzzles that you can use. This one, we just added OpenArt AI, which is an image creator. So I've used it already with photographs. And I think you described this last time too, didn't you, Linda? You talked about it a little bit.
I think so.
Yeah. That you can make it relevant to your class. So in other words, if we have students from all over the world, and so we don't want to always just show pictures with, white people. So you can ask for different ethnicities in the photographs so your students can relate to the photographs. But it's really easy to use, and I like it a lot. So that's brand new. And we also have added, let's see, this one I wasn't familiar with, ISL Collective. So, but you can see that we have just a ton of different resources that, should you decide to be a lead teacher, you can pick any of these that you like. Some of them are better for lower level, and some of them are better for higher level. So if you just, take a peek at these, that will be very helpful for you to add to the textbook.
So one of the things that I would have to do, let's say I'm a new teacher, is start off with the textbook, but start looking at these resources, and I'd have to learn how they match up with what I'm doing in class, what I'm doing in terms of the curriculum, right? Because these supplemental resources that you just were telling us, the variety of them, are not necessarily going to line up with the sequence.
Mhm. So, all of our teachers are assigned a mentor. So every level of
Oh, good.
teacher, let's say you decide to teach level 2, there is a mentor for level 2, and they are an excellent resource to tell you which of those supplemental resources are good for level 2. Okay. Would you find that to be true, Linda?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. The other thing I would say is, yeah, there are a lot of resources, but honestly, most teachers start with one.
Exactly.
WordWall, and in WordWall, that's games, and we all share an account. I live in fear of the day that they don't let us do that anymore. But the advantage of that is that we can use each other's games. So if I'm teaching level 1 and I'm starting unit 9, I'll look for level 1 unit 9 games and see what other teachers have done and just use theirs. And sometimes, I get more experience and I can adapt or create my own, or I want something very specific. Sometimes it's faster just to create your own once you're used to doing it. But and I'll just stick with that. 90% of the time, I'll go to WordWall because I know that it has games of the kind I'm familiar with. My students are familiar with them, so they don't have to learn something new because we tend to use similar things a lot. And then down the line, I'm looking for something a little bit different. I might ask other teachers in my mentor group in that level 1, what are you doing for such and such? And someone will say, oh, I'm using this other resource. And can you share that specific one with me? So it's not like you have to go through and vet look through everything and see what matches and use it specifically. There's a lot of overlap in how you can use the different ones. I would start out, choose one or maybe two that you like, keep going back to those. And yeah, when you feel everything else is under control, um, yeah, or you're just bored with it someday, go look at other things or ask your fellow teachers what else they use.
Yeah. It's easy to get overwhelmed if you feel like you need to study every single one of those resources. And so, I mean, I've looked at them over the years and I ended up I maybe used 2 or 3 of those that are on the list, and I just have looked at them when I had free time. But like Linda said, I started with WordWall and I've kind of stuck with it. So, does that answer your question, Kent?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we also have this link called BLC Teach with a whole lot of information on it. And I think Linda shared this with you too, but I did want to also review and point out that we have this section here called Teaching Resources, Resources by Level. Here's the online subscription list we just looked at. Ventures Arcade is connected to our textbooks. So Kent, this really helps supplement what you're doing from the textbook because here's a lot of games and puzzles and things to do for levels. So for example, I teach level 3 and we just finished the free time chapter unit. And so I might give this to them as homework or use it in class where it's a review and it's something that they can do on their own or here, let's see. I'm not going to do it because I'll embarrass myself, but in any event, it's another resource for us to use is in addition to the book that's already done for you, so you don't have to do anything. And then Linda has put together, she has a wonderful page which has all kinds of resources on it as well. So this is another resource for you to use to supplement the textbook, should you decide to.
On the arcade, I use that at the end. Some teachers do different things. For me, I use the arcade at the end of a unit. So I don't have to create a unit review for my students. It's really effective. It has exactly what was in the unit. And I'll just say, okay, my students know it now. We just finished unit 9 homework today, and we'll do a little bit of it in class to remind them. And their homework is to do the activities for unit 9.
I do that as well. And sometimes I assign it as homework, and sometimes I do it in class. But it's already, as Linda said, it's already done for you. Okay. All right. So you also need to decide what kind of materials you're going to use. Are you going to use slides in class like I do, like you're looking at right now, or Google Docs, Word docs? Linda prefers Google Docs to teach her class. She uses it like a whiteboard where, well, I'll let you describe it, Linda. How do you use Google Docs?
I start when I'm doing my lesson planning, I create one Google Doc that has everything that I'm going to want for class in order. So if we're going to start with a picture, talking about that, I'll have the picture up there. If we're going to be, I don't know, making a grid and fitting in different verbs or whatever it is, I'll have the grid there with the titles. I might will have links to any outside resources, whether they're games or the arcade or a video or something. I'll have the links in there so that I can just have them in my lesson plan. But during class, I can just go down the doc sequentially and see what the next thing is. And I have all my resources right there. And the reason I like to use docs is because I do a lot of typing to support student discussion and student answers. And I'm teaching level 1, but earlier this year I was teaching level 4, also a conversation group, and I did the same. If someone says something, whether and it's a focus for the class, and there's something incorrect in it, I might type the whole thing but leave a blank right there. And that tells the students that, oh, what goes there? And they'll say the same thing and again, oh, what? But for them to see it, especially teaching online, way easier for them to understand what I'm looking for than saying, oh, no, can you say that part again? They have no idea what you're talking about. But supporting them with writing, or we co-create a story or co-create a question with, or the text from a video, we're trying to get them to reconstruct it. Well, what did they say already? And I'm writing in the document. And I personally find when I'm in slides, maybe you'll say I'm not disciplined enough to use slides because I'm always moving things over to fit some text where I want to fit it under a picture or whatever. And I'll start a new slide, but it won't have everything that I wanted it. And with the doc, I can type for as long as I want. Everything else just moves down under it. The converse is that I was working with a new teacher just the other day who said she's struggling with the organization piece of it, and having her material on slides allows her to conceive in her mind, now we're doing this, and she doesn't have to worry about what's coming next on the doc. She just likes to have it right there. It makes her feel and be more organized to say, we're doing this. This is on one slide. This is another slide. Remembering that a lot of our students, particularly at the lower levels, participate in Zoom classes on their phones. And so it's really important. Slides are free, extra slides. Really important not to just stuff as much as we can on one slide, because in our head, they all belong together. If you have students on your phone, it's so instructive to actually log in to your class on your phone and see what it looks like for students. And I'm always telling them, if they're holding their phone like this, the slide is going across this way and it only has this much room to be. And I'm always reminding them they can turn their phone this way, and then the slide takes up the whole phone and it can be much bigger. But anyway, it's such a personal thing, the slides versus docs thing. Now you've heard both sides, I think, Lynn.
Right. Yeah, because I use slides and that's my lesson plan. The slides are my lesson plan because I know what order I'm going to do things in and what the content is. And in my head, mostly I have the time that I'm going to allocate. So again, there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's whatever works for you. Yes, Carla?
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask Linda something because after we watch the video, the homework that you assigned us before the first meeting, and seeing you in action, I realized what you're doing. Yes, you get a lot of support by typing every answer you get, even the wrong answers, and then you just give them the chance to, correct or whatever. But I do the same that you're saying, Lynn. I like having my slides because it's there. That's my support. So what I'm really wanted to ask you is, do you think that it's because of your experience that you are more like free flowing, whatever comes, you just type it and you're chilling, you're just going along, whereas maybe a new teacher needs to have all these pretty well organized, ready to go and present to the student, and you just follow each slide. Otherwise, I feel like, okay, what was I doing? What am I supposed to type next? I mean, I have all this huge doc, yeah, but what am I going to fill it in with?
It's some of it is just it's intuitive. It's how I think. It supports how I think that we're in the moment with this. I'll show you though, and it's way too small for you to read, but you can get an idea of the structure that's in my head when I'm teaching. This is my lesson plan document. So in my lesson, and I teach with assistants, so we use breakout rooms. I'll make it a little bit bigger, but the idea is not so much to see what's in it, but to see how I organize it. So we have a warm up, we have breakout room 1, we always come back together. We have breakout room 2, and you can see I've always, my whole years and years ago, I was a product manager at Intel, and I used an outline processor even then when it wasn't really a thing, because the indentations and the headings in the lesson plan, this is what my brain is seeing while I'm teaching. Okay, we're in this section, and I don't have all the words in it, but I have this kind of format in my brain while I'm teaching. And so I think that helps as I'm going through the doc, because I picture, okay, we're in this section now, we're in that section now, we're in this section now. So maybe that helps. I guess the other thing, in case it wasn't obvious, is I'm not a rule follower just by my nature. And I think I find slides just too constraining. But it's, everyone's brain works differently. So like Lynn said, there's no right or wrong.
Can I make a comment?
Please.
Carola, I like the structure of slides too, because I've taught lots of ESL classes. I'm trying to become more interactive since we've had Zoom so that the students can see and actually follow me as we go through this journey. But I still need the structure. So what I do is I put that structure that Linda was talking about on my desk in front of me, and then I have the interactive activity on the screen, and that way I can refer to, okay, where am I getting off track? Do I need to take a breath and go back to what we were doing? Because it's really easy to go down a rabbit hole when you have students and they're all talking and sharing. And sometimes I go, well, how did I get there? So if I have that cheat sheet in front of me, that helps me to stay organized as I'm interacting with the students. But that's the only way that I've been able to do it. I still use slides a lot of the time, but when I am working with students because I won't have breakout rooms, probably. So when I'm working with a group of students, that's our breakout room. We have our teaching, and then that's our breakout room. So I want to make sure that I have that lesson plan that I can just glance to provide me with the structure.
Mm-hmm. So
and I printed out from, because I started teaching in person. I always printed out my lesson plan. I had highlighters and all that. And now I have 2 screens. So I have Zoom and whatever I'm screen sharing on my big screen, and on my side screen I have my lesson plan, so I can look at it too.
Not get lost in the middle
Yeah.
of all of it.
Which sometimes I do, but sometimes that getting lost is, if students are going down a path, like Elena said, it's easy to go down a rabbit hole. But sometimes I'll think, no, you know what? This is an important rabbit hole. We're going to follow it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Jean, did you have a comment?
So I've used both Google Docs and Slides. I think they both have their merits. I do like Slides a little bit for the organization, and I'm able to bring in pictures more easily, which I really like to do because I think that helps format. And so what I do to deal with the interactive part is when I'm running slides, I don't do it in slide mode, it's edit mode. And I have lots of extra blank slides between all my slides.
Mhm.
And if I need them, I'm good. I type in them if I'm just go to the next one. So I have little whiteboards like after every slide, if I want to type some more, and then it's just there in my document. But the one long flowing document is nice too. I just use a lot of pictures, so I find slides to be a little bit more helpful for pictures.
Yeah,
And
me too.
either one of these you can make available, and you should make available to your students afterwards. So that's a Google Drive is a good thing to have because you can place your slides or your docs in a shared drive where they can access it anytime they want. And yeah, so any of that works quite well.
Oh, speaking
Um,
of accessing a drive, so does that mean we provide them with an email account from BLC?
No, if you have a Gmail account, you can set up a Google Drive, and from there, that's a shared drive. So all you have to do is give the students the link to that shared drive, and they can access any of the materials that you put there. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I didn't know about that. I'll have to look
Yeah,
into that.
I'm going to show you. We have some resources to learn that. So.
But they won't
No,
be able to access any other information from my account, I hope.
No.
I'll
Linda?
just show you what
You
I
have to be
have.
careful about it.
Yeah, it sounds a little weird.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that.
So
But
you
you
can
can
do it
give
that way.
each document within Google Drive has its own level of permissions. So you can
Mhm.
have a folder that's only your class. So they
Right.
won't see any of your other folders. And each you can do by folder or each document, and then you can put each individual email or whatever so that they can access it. So you can link and control that very easily.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So my experience is that they don't. That we need to make things way easier, or they lose the link, to the particular thing, or they can't find what they're looking for, or they want to go back, or even the link that we just sent out because they have disappearing messages set up on their WhatsApp. What the way I've decided to tackle it is, and Lynn actually taught a workshop on how to do this. I've set up a little website. It's just one page. It's in Google Sites, which is also free if you have Gmail. This is at the top. It has our Zoom link and our contact information. And each class, I post the homework with whatever links are on the homework. And I post a link to the class notes. And this is what we literally did in class. I just publish it and post the link there. And then at the end of every class, once I have posted the homework and the class notes, I put the link to the class website again in our class WhatsApp group. And then the students don't have to keep track of anything except for this one link to our website, which I post twice a week, no fail, after every class. And everything that they need to find is right on there.
Yeah.
That looks great.
Thank
Yeah.
you for that.
Yeah. And I did the same thing. I set up a class webpage and I gave them the link to that page at the beginning of the year several times. And they just go to that page for their homework and everything else. So yeah.
But that
it's-
page is on our drive in the cloud, just to be clear where it is.
Mhm. Yeah, you're correct. Okay. Let's see what we have left here. I'll wrap this up. You can also use a whiteboard in Zoom, um, which I don't think we have time to do that, but that's also another way that you can do your lessons is a whiteboard in Zoom. Here are some resources for you that are on the page that I showed you earlier, the BLC Teach page and the training page. Here's the Google Drive and Docs how-to. So if you click on that, This will show you how to set up a Google Drive and get started. We have 1 hour Zoom tricks and tips if you want more to learn more about how to use Zoom if you're going to teach on Zoom. Some of you might want to teach in person. And then here's one on how to do Google Slides. So if you've ever used PowerPoint, they're very similar. But I like Google Slides because you can just put it into your Google Drive. That works great. Okay, and does anybody else have any materials that you would suggest using for your teaching your class? Okay. Jean?
There was one that I forget, maybe a PLC seminar talked about it, was TED Talks. And there are TED Talks for ESL learners at all levels on topics and stuff. So just more good, easy, high quality listening for them, which they can control the speed, they can turn on subtitles if they want, so they can use it how they want. And interesting new topics kind of often, so then they're a little included with what's happening around.
Yeah, I think, well, there's TED Talks and then there's TED Ed, which I
Right.
think is very oriented towards English learners, and it has just a myriad of topics. So thanks for bringing that up, Jane. Anybody else have anything that you've used in the past? Okay. All right. All right, so in the time we have left, I was going to do an interactive exercise, but I don't think we have time for that. But let's just talk about what do you do when your lesson plan goes off the rails? You know, when you go down one of those rabbit holes that we talked about earlier, or you finish up earlier than you thought, they move through the material faster than you thought. What do you do? What are your thoughts around that? Anybody had that experience? Too much, you run over, or you know, end up with time on your hands? Thoughts?
I sometimes have what I call a sponge activity, which is an extra activity. It's either a game or it's a Jeopardy quiz game type of thing, or the students can talk about their experiences with this particular topic if they have that much language. It's just something that we don't always get to, but it's usually more practice on whatever we talked about that day.
Mhm. Yeah, that's an excellent suggestion, is just to have something ready if you stop short, right? I always tack on a couple of things to the end of my slides that are just real easy things, like a conversation, you know, like, well, what's your favorite color? Or what, you know, what restaurant have you been to lately that you like? Or, you know, just anything that can fill that last, you know, 5 or 10 minutes if you're short. Linda, what do you do?
Put pictures at the end of my lesson plan. So whether you're using slides or docs, I just find pictures. Often they're about animals, animals doing funny things because they make students laugh. And I could spend half an hour with students just riffing off a picture, right? Asking them things. What do they see and what do they laugh? And so my light, I realize, is yeah. So yeah, that usually covers it for me. And actually, I had last year. I had I don't know if I was in a hurry for whatever reason. I forgot to put a picture before we went to previewing the homework, and we just went straight into homework. And one of the students said, "Teacher, where's our picture?"
Mm-hmm.
Because they kind of got used to that routine coming out of the second breakout room or whatever the last activity was, and just relaxing into laughing about discussing a picture before we went to preview homework. So now I'm very faithful with it.
as a teacher, I never taught ESL, but as a teacher, if I ended earlier than I thought, or I ran over, which sometimes happened, reviews were always a fill in for the rest, going back and going over material, especially material that I had sensed that they were had trouble with before, and making sure if we go over, making sure the next class that I take them back where we were and go through the steps.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I would say rarely your class is fits exactly into your
Right.
precise lesson plan. There's more often than not things like what you described are, wow, they're just not getting this at all. And it's taking more time than I thought it would, and I'm not going to get to this, and so you start stressing over things like that. You just have to go with the flow and know that they need what they need, however long that takes, right? And maybe it disappoints you because you didn't get through your lesson plan, but it's not about you.
It's more about me. I make it more about me than them, and that's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah. Any other comments about that or ideas? What you should do? Yeah. Just my point in talking about this is just know that it happens, and have your plan B ready so that you don't panic and stress over it, because it will happen. It will definitely happen. Okay. I had one more thing. I think I'll email it to you. Let me just show you what it was. Um, I had an interactive exercise, which is basically 6 activities out of order. And I was just going to have you put them in the order that you thought would make sense for the time that you had allocated. And so I gave you the content and I gave you the time. There's a couple of activities here that you have to decide, well, should I do activity 1 or should I do activity 2? What's going to be more meaningful? So would it be okay if I emailed this to you and you can just play around with it if you'd like?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, good.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Final thoughts or questions about lesson planning?
It was a very good session.
Okay, thank you. I sometimes I get the question, how long does it take to do lesson planning, right? So, if you stick to the textbook, then, your lesson plan is basically reviewing what's in the textbook, making sure that you're comfortable with it. Or, you can spend 2 hours lesson planning. It's all I have found that the longer I teach, that it goes a lot faster now. And especially as the year goes on and I get to know my students, I know what works with them and about how fast they're going to pick up on things, then that makes it easier too. So, Linda, anything to add on that? How long does it take you to do lesson
Yeah,
plans?
it's very, very variable.
Yep.
Um, and I'm this year I taught level 1 online for the fourth or fifth year, and I still look at last year's lesson plan sometimes and think, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
So that just happens. But one thing I'll say about BLC teachers is people share. So whether it's going into WordWall and finding games that other people have done, or going in level 0 and 1, I published my entire document with all last year's lesson plans, with all the links to the class materials and the games and all that in there. And in intro level 0, we have a teacher who does the same. And I'm sure if you're going into level 3, Lynn would be happy to share what she does and her past slides. So you never really have to start from scratch.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I'll spend an hour, sometimes more, sometimes less. Um, it just depends. But it is something that you do need to do. Or you can wing it if you want, but I don't know, you're not going to get the outcome that you want probably. So, other questions or comments?
I just have a question, a procedural question. Will I hear from somebody during the summer about what's next and all of that.
Yeah, that's a great question, Kent. The next, we will, our current year classes end this week. There are a couple that are continuing a little bit, but for the most part, they end this week. And our admin team spends a couple of weeks taking a deep breath, lots of deep breaths. And then middle of July, I don't remember the exact date, but somewhere around July 10th, I'll send out a note saying, we'd love you to come back and time to register for fall if you're up for it. And then we try to have most volunteer signups done by the end of July. Very beginning of August, we're going to open student registration August 15th. And we like to have most of the classes at least set up by beginning of August, so that as soon as student registrations start to come in, we can start assigning students to classes. And last year, people bookmark that date. Last year, I think we had over 200 students register in the first 36 hours that registration was open. We give returning students a week priority. So we don't assign any new students to classes for the first week, only returning students. And we have new student, but they can all register on the same day because it would be impossible to try to control that. And we have students who signed up the evening, like 8 hours, 6 hours after registration opened, who spent 2 or 3 months on a wait list. So we really, it's great if we can get most of the volunteer signups done in July. And then there's always, people don't know their schedules or whatever, we can add classes, but that's when you will hear from me next. And of course, anytime you have questions, you know how to get a hold of us, but I'll come out to you guys in beginning of, like the second week in July, with volunteer signups for the fall.
Well, enjoy your time off.
Thank you. I'm not sure it's ever really off, but thank you.
Well, I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, I know you have Linda's email. I'm not sure if you have mine, but
they do, and I'll send it out again.
Okay.
I'm going to have yours when you send out the lesson plan arrangement.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and as well, and I will send out the deck that I used today too, because it has some links in it that you might find helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys, so much.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everybody,
you.
for
Care.
coming.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye, y'all.